Adobe Fresco versus Procreate. Which is better? That's what we're diving into today, and hopefully by the end of this video, you'll have a pretty good idea of just that. While Procreate is known for its vast library of raster-based brushes, Procreate can't create in vector. And Adobe Fresco has become a little more well-known in recent years for being able to not only create vector-based designs, but also raster-based, and they've also become well-known for their inventive live brushes, which stimulate what it's like to use a real physical medium. Plus, Adobe Fresco has made their app completely free in 2025, which could change everything. Willow wanted to be in the video, so now she's helping me. My name's Elianna, and I've been using these apps both simultaneously for different things. I literally have them both installed on my iPad right now, and I'm gonna try to give you the quick rundown of their similarities and where they differ from each other. Let's start out with the biggest change of 2025, which is that Adobe has made Fresco completely free. Now, what exactly does this mean? Previously, just to have the app in working condition, you had to be paying the $9.99 a month to use anything, but now you can download it in the App Store for free. Whereas Procreate cost $12.99, but you get it for the entirety of a lifetime. You pay once and you own it forever. With Fresco, the free version gives you access to basic features, but for some more upgrades, 100 gigabytes of cloud storage, as well as the full brush library. You can, however, upgrade to something like the Fresco and Photoshop plan for iPad for $9.99 per month, or you can own Creative Cloud, and that will give you access to that and more benefits. So which is actually cheaper? We'll get back to that. Now we're gonna look at some iPad specific features that you should know about before you purchase these apps. Because here's where it gets interesting. This is something that most reviews don't mention, so I thought it would be good to include it. She's looking at me again. You wanna be in the video? Okay, oh my goodness. You like being in videos? She does. Okay, what we're trying to get to here is that these apps don't work the same on all iPads. Procreate works on pretty much any iPad from the past 6 years, even older iPads like the basic iPad 6th generation. But Adobe Fresco, you'll need at least an iPad Pro from 2018 or an iPad Air 4th generation. So basically newer iPads. Another important thing to note is the fact that in Procreate, the color history feature is only going to work on iPad Pro 6th generation and the iPad Pro 11-inch 4th generation and upward. So that's something to note. I did not know this. I got Procreate on my older iPad and I couldn't find my color history and I was super confused. Had to do some research and figured that out, so just wanted to throw that out there. Now let's look into the brush engines. One of the biggest features when it comes to any artist's illustration app would be the actual drawing experience. And that's where these apps are completely different. Like mentioned earlier, Adobe Fresco can create in vector, which means that you'll have scalable, smooth designs and illustrations that work virtually anywhere in any size. And it's super helpful for things like logo design or even just illustrations that you might not know the exact size for yet, because you can scale them to whatever size you want and they will never look pixelated. I love drawing in vector for this very purpose, and also I just get a lot cleaner lines, and so that's something that I really appreciate. In Adobe Fresco, you can also use pixel based brushes, and so that's like rasterized images, and this will look pixely if you zoom up super far or try to scale it to a different size, but for people that don't need that ability, it works great, and there's a lot of cool texturized things that you can do with it. Lastly, Adobe Fresco also has these live brushes, and if you look at this watercolor brush right here, see how the paint actually flows and blends like real watercolor? That isn't just a texture, it's stimulating actual paint physics. And so they've invented this tool that works kind of like the real medium, which I think is really cool and fun to experiment with. And it'll move and it'll change transparency level, and it'll add a lot to your drawings. And that is pixel based. Procreate's watercolor brushes look great, but they're static textures, so they don't interact with each other the same way. The cool thing though is Procreate's brushes are incredibly responsive and smooth. Even older iPads don't get lag, whereas Fresco's live brushes sometimes get stuttering, especially when trying to work fast on a project. Even on my newer iPad, I haven't experienced it as much as my older iPad, but there can still be a little bit of lag, so that's something to keep in mind. Now, both apps have the ability to create custom brushes, and it just works a little bit differently. So I'm gonna switch over right now to show you guys how that exactly works. But before we do that, I just wanted to hop in and show you what the hand lettering kind of looks like. This first one was Procreate, and this one right here is Adobe Fresco. As you can see, Adobe Fresco is way more wobbly, and I think it's because there's no built-in stabilization features that I know of. So if you're really big into hand lettering and that sort of thing, I definitely go with Procreate. Now for the brush engine, what everybody has been waiting for. Procreate is well known for this, and it's why so many people love it. There are so many options to choose from, and there's so much customization involved. So these are actually some brushes right here that I've created myself, I've experimented with, and as you can see, there's lots of settings. So we're gonna go ahead and make a new brush to kind of just give you a rundown of some of the basic stuff. So you can change the spacing, the jitter, lots of different ways to make the brush interact with your Apple Pencil. There's also this stabilization tab, which I was kind of talking about, and this helps when you're wanting to create a brush that's really good with writing and lettering. It makes it really smooth to write with and draw with. You can change the taper on the edges of the brush and what those look like and feel like and work like. And what's really cool about this next section is you can change the shape that the brush is built around, so that's pretty cool. And you can change also the texture that it is. So they have a lot of built-in textures that you can just browse through and use from their library, and you can also import your own. Same with the shapes, you can import your own. But yeah, it gives a lot of creativity, and there are really just endless options of things to explore with this. You can also name your brushes and put yourself in as the author with your information so that if you ever sell your brush, then people know it's made by you. With Adobe Fresco, there is this option here to add brushes, and so you can either import from your files or click on Discover New Brushes, and there are quite a lot of options here from different years and different styles and textures and different kinds of brushes that you can add to your library. So that's pretty cool. But in terms of customization, I would say it's not really there. Definitely not to the level of Procreate. This is more of a use the brushes that are there kind of thing for me. So Procreate comes with a lot of pre-built-in brushes that are incredibly versatile, incredibly expansive in their capabilities. You can also purchase brush packs from creators and other people, and you can make your own like described. So there's a lot that you can do with these brushes. Whereas my experience with Adobe Fresco has been a bit different. As you can see, there's limited capabilities, but you also have to keep in mind that Adobe Fresco is a newer app, and so they're constantly updating things and adding new features. But overall, the brush engine is not as impressive as Procreate. She wants to go on her walk. Now let's talk animation. You might be surprised to find out that both of these apps have animation capabilities. Procreate has frame-by-frame animation and also a cool feature where you can show a time-lapse of your whole creation process of that specific piece. So I really like this feature. I think it's super helpful if you just want something to share on social media or in a YouTube video like this one. I don't think Adobe Fresco has this capability, but it does have other animation capabilities. Not only does it have frame by frame, but it also has this new motion path animation tool. So you can draw a character once and animate it along a path automatically, which I haven't super delved into, but I think that's a really cool feature that I might want to try out in the future. And it means you won't have to draw out every single frame by hand. Adobe Fresco also gives you unlimited frames, whereas Procreate is limited by your iPad's memory. But I will say, from what I've heard, Procreate's animation system is way more intuitive, and Fresco can feel like desktop software crammed onto an iPad. Now let's compare the user interface. Speaking of interfaces, this is where personal preference really comes into play, because Procreate is all about gestures. 2-finger tap to undo, 3-finger swipe to redo or tap. And you can actually, I think, customize some of these, which I haven't done, but that's super helpful as well. It's minimal, it's clean, and you can learn it in 10 minutes. Adobe Fresco kind of actually takes a little more of a learning curve, in my opinion, because there are toolbars everywhere and lots of different features. But once you have that streamlined in your mind, then it is pretty easy to use. If you are coming from other Adobe products, then you're gonna love Fresco because there are gonna be some familiar symbols and everything will just make sense to you. But if you aren't, then it could take a bit more of a learning curve. Now, overall performance. When you're deep into a project, the layer limit matters, and the fact whether or not your app will crash. In Procreate, your layer limit depends on your iPad model and your canvas size. Adobe Fresco gives you unlimited layers, but the catch is they're stored in the cloud, so if your internet is slow or down, then you won't be able to access it or it will slow down your workflow. Procreate works perfectly offline. Fresco, not so much, at least not for the advanced features. Okay, so now that you've heard all of that, here is my honest take and advice of which app is better. I'd say for beginners, you might want to go with Procreate because it's $13 once and it works on any iPad. It's very user-friendly and beginner-friendly. Plus, the community is massive and you'll find tutorials everywhere and lots of extra brushes that you can add to your library, or just any kind of question that you have can be answered. Now, if you're doing more professional work for like clients or need vector graphics, Adobe Fresco is the absolute best. And that cloud sync means that you can start in an iPad and finish in desktop on Illustrator or Photoshop, and it works seamlessly with other Creative Cloud stuff. So if you're already a member of Creative Cloud, then that's going to be super helpful for you because it will integrate with everything. If you love digital painting, then both are great, but if you want that realistic watercolor feel when you're actually drawing on the iPad, then I'd suggest Fresco again, just because the live brushes are going to feel so cool and almost like the real thing. Or if you want a vast library of different textures and elements to use, then I'd go with Procreate. So in terms of the different things that I use these apps for example, I use Adobe Fresco to create my Inspire Joy designs that I'm wearing right now, and I used Procreate to create my font that I'm using in this video right now. Also, if you'd like a more detailed and in-depth video on each of these apps, let me know and I'll see what I can cook up over here. This is a side note, but the Apple Pencil Pro is incredible, and if you are using either of these apps, you should get it. So, which should you choose? Here's my framework. Do you have an older iPad? Procreate. Are you a complete beginner? Procreate. Do you need vector graphics? Fresco. Do you use other Adobe apps? Fresco. Do you want to paint realistically? Fresco. Do you want simple and reliable with tons of tutorials that you can find? Procreate. And honestly, if budget allows, I would get both. So I definitely didn't get to go into all of the details of all of the features of both of these apps, But if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them in the comments below, and let me know if you want a more in-depth explanation or even visuals to help you guys figure these out, and I'll see you next time. Bye.